I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, looks like the board, all board is here, and we have Charlie is absent of notice. And we have our first public comment section.
And you're opening that at, it looks like 6:01.
6:01.
None?
I have none.
Okay, well, we'll continue and leave that open. Minutes, special meeting, August 23rd. This is Moriarty, Superintendent of Schools. Motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Duncan. Are there any corrections or all
Didn't
those
see any.
in favor then?
Aye.
Current bills payable, general operating expenses. Looks like we have attachments 2 and 3. And I need a motion to approve the payment of the bills manifest 3007, 3008, 3009, and 3010.
So moved. Second.
Any questions with any of the manifests?
I mean,
Yes.
3009 and 3010 are additions tonight. One is a void and reissue, so the net balance is 0. And the other is a reimbursement for Mr. Swanker for $959.
So can I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second by Nancy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent report enrollment, Mrs. Moriarty.
So you have attachment 4 is your enrollment. You will notice that our enrollment is down. Certainly the class that exited from the class of 2022 was 75 students. The incoming kindergarten class between the 2 Sandwich Central School and Interlakes Elementary is 45. So that's a big, an exit and an entrance that is a difference of 30 students. You will notice that for preschool, we are actually at 30 preschool students. We have 15 3-year-olds and 15 4-year-olds. The needs were such this year that we're actually running 2 preschool classes. So we moved one of our special education teachers to take an additional preschool class. And because we only have 3 kindergarten classes at ILES, it actually opened up space to have that additional preschool classroom. So it worked out well. And that certainly, when you look at our overall enrollment, is 922 because of that additional preschool population, but it's certainly still down from last June 2022. But we do have, we certainly have larger class sizes and or larger numbers for grade 3, 4, and 5. But certainly when you look at K to 3 right now, K to 2, those are fairly small classes comparatively speaking to what we've had in the future. I mean, in the past.
So school opening update. Mrs.
Yes, we
Moriarty.
have just completed day 6 of school with students. It's been, I think most people would say, a very positive start. It feels like a more traditional start to school than we've had over the last couple of years. We did have 3 very full days with staff prior to opening and an additional day with brand new staff to help orient them before we have them meet and join all of the work with everybody else. I would want to really commend the administrators for doing some very deep and intentional planning for those opening days with staff. A lot of effort went in to try to make it an experience that brought people back together as a community and really working on our norms of collaboration and our working practices and getting ourselves in a good place for the year ahead. Feedback that I've heard has been very positive, well received. We are at the stage, we are down 2 bus drivers at this stage. We do have one person who's testing, so fingers crossed. We are down 6 paraeducator positions at the middle high school. We are seeing a little more traffic again for some applicants, so I do know that they will be doing some interviews over the next couple days. And we are down 2 special education paraeducators at ILES and 2 kindergarten paraeducators at ILES. So we're down 4 at Interlakes Elementary School. We are in, a better, I think people worked very aggressively this summer to try to hire. We did get 40 applicants. Not we're all a good fit, obviously, in terms of moving forward with, but I do think we're starting to see more people applying for positions. Our substitute numbers are, we are getting more people interested in taking jobs for subbing. So a little healthier than we were certainly last year.
Are we competitive?
I think, yes, I would say we are competitive. Certainly our salary schedules for paraeducators and teaching staff were competitive. Our substitute rate, we raised it last year. I think what I would say is everybody else raised too. I mean, I don't think we're as, I think we were competitive for like a moment and then other people raised.
Well, that's
So
why
I
I
would
asked the
say we're
question.
about the same.
It's
Yes, yeah.
still.
Yes.
But could ask the superintendent, memory provides that at last meeting, we were down 5 bus drivers.
Correct.
So
We've had some progress. Yes, yes. And, we have had during, while they were closing that gap, we had to combine some bus routes and things like that, not the ideal, but we at least had a way to get through that pinch point, but certainly getting, to 2 with 1 in a position to hopefully pass the test. We're in a much better shape than we were a couple weeks ago.
Thank you.
That's good. Okay. DOE 25 financial report for 2021-2022 school year. Temporina.
I just wanted to let the board know that the end of year report, financial report for the Department of Ed and the Department of Revenue has been completed and uploaded. We have an unassigned fund balance of $476,580. As long as we don't get any comments back from the Department of Ed, that should be a pretty firm number. And I will have a summary report for you at the October meeting where it takes out. And I do have reports for you to sign the signature page tonight.
Okay, great.
And I think it's worth commending Ms. Temporino and Mrs. Cheryl Soma, who does also assist, as well as the whole business department to help pull that all together. It's substantial. We meet the deadline. There are many districts that don't. So it's really quite a feat.
Thank you. All right, correspondence, superintendent, board secretary, board members. No correspondence. Okay, new business, field trip approval for the Salem Central School upper multi-age class to Camp Hale. Attachment 5 in your packet. Did you want to speak to that?
I think.
I was gonna make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to second it.
Well, that was quick. I mean, okay.
I want to join this sandwich group too.
Yes, go ahead.
You're welcome to join us. As long
So
as you
Duncan-
pass the background checks.
Yeah, making the motion.
Okay, and how were you second? Okay,
Any discussion points?
I know. Is there any discussions at all? Sounds interesting.
Camp Hale.
Would you like to have
I was
Mr.
gonna
Hilder
say
share
that.
some details?
Can you
Sure.
share a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to. So Swan Lakes Conservation Society reached out to me at the end of the last school year and said, given this funding from a benefactor, to get local kids, local schools, local kids to the area. We're working in conjunction with Camp Hale. Would you be interested in doing it overnight? So I said, yeah, I would be interested. It's right down the road. That sounds great. So I've been working with Denise Scirocco throughout the summer to try to get the details finalized and, working on it in these more recent weeks. Last week I went and met with Denise and the director of Camp Hale and some of their staff. toward the facility. It is a beautiful facility. It's right there with Mara Vista as far as like modern amenities and quality craftsmanship. And it's right there on Swan Lake, so it's, I don't want to say it's a stone's throw from the Sandwich Beach, but it's about 2 stones throw from the Sandwich Beach. It's right there, so beautiful. So we're gonna go out, I guess I can just quickly go through kind of brief itinerary. We're gonna bus them out there. It's about a 5-minute bus ride. We're gonna drop gear and then hop back on the bus, and the bus is gonna take us to the trailhead for the Dot Banks Nature Trail, which is Swan Lakes Conservation Society's trail network. And then we're gonna hike the kids about 2-hour hike, do a loop, and then back to camp, where we'll have lunch. And then in the afternoon, we'll orient the kids to the camp, get them set up in their cabins. We've got team building activities, community building activities. We've got some nature art. I'm going to be running a little tower building STEM activity. Actually, Bullard's going to be running the nature art piece of things. So staff are collaborating with Camp Hale staff to create these activities. In the evening after dinner, we're going to do a talent show and a little campfire, similar to like what you find at Mara Vista. And we're going to try to have them in bed with the lights out by 9 o'clock.
Good luck with
I can
it.
see that.
They have a lodge that it's one long building that has 4 rooms. So all the kids will be in the same building. It has bathrooms right in it. And I have SCS staff members staying with the kids overnight. So and one parent volunteer. Oli Anderson is the director of Sandwich Parks and Rec. So SCS staff will be with the kids throughout the entire trip, in addition to Camp Hale staff and SLCS. The next morning we'll get up, we'll pack up the cabins, and then not to be confused with SLCS, the SLSC, the Swan Lake Science Center, will be coming out to do a presentation on human activity and how it impacts local animals. I think they're bringing like a peregrine falcon and then a bat and what was the other one?
I said mountain lion, but I don't
Not
think
a mountain lion.
Could be a bobcat.
I'm sure we could round up a few bears.
Bears, I got plenty for you.
And then we'll do a mapping activity and some more team building before we close things up. So kids are going to get to school at the normal time on Monday. We'll go out, spend the night. We'll have them back before dismissal on Tuesday. So it should be pretty close.
Great.
And I would like to, normally we would give the board more notice, and I do apologize for that. This kind of came quickly, and it felt very much like a Mara Vista type experience. We did tentatively put it out to families saying that it does require school board approval because it's an overnight, it's a new overnight. So I do apologize for putting the board in a short position to make a decision on that.
As do I.
Is that the entirety of the upper middle multi-age?
So what group is
13 males, 9 females?
22. Yeah, it is our biggest class this year. So I think the timing for this group is great. You've got 3rd graders entering as 4th graders, and it's a big group with a lot of personality. So I'm really hoping this is an opportunity to get them to gel as a classroom community, get outside.
Is Camp Hale looking to become Mara Vista to attract groups like this?
I'm not sure I can answer this because this really felt to me like it was a one-off because of this benefactor's donation. So I think once we see how it goes, then maybe there will be discussions about
How convenient would that be to not have to go to Mara Vista? Although I don't know if the kids would.
It's no
Like
down
being that
check in any
close.
respect.
I would just say, as a parent whose son will be in that group, I support this trip. And as a board member, I have always, as a board member from Sandwich, I have long thought that building connections between Camp Hale and Sandwich Central School is something that we should explore, and I think this is a good opportunity for that. And I'll get back to you with how my son does.
Oh, you're not one of the students.
You're
I
not.
don't think that would be approved by my son. But
Okay, well, sounds wonderful.
Motion's made and seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. That's it.
Hey, donation. Attachment number 6, $12,821 from the Sandwich Central School for School and Community ASC to support student activities.
Would you like an explanation of what this? So the Sandwich Central School had a community group get together. They did an amazing job fundraising. They do not desire to become an official, with bylaws and getting their own insurance and all of those pieces. So that the funds will become part of the student activity funds, and it will become a support group that is facilitated by the principal. So it will be, if there's events and things that they're going to help with, there are events that Mr. Hilger is taking on as the school's responsibility. So this really is a matter of transferring those funds from that.
Versus setting them up as a
Correct.
501c3 for,
And do going through all that, those pieces.
Were these accumulated funds or a one-time fundraiser or?
What I think you're looking at is 2 years of parking
I
and
was
then
gonna say-
one holiday craft fair and then
Sandwich fair
and then a
parking.
pandemic. It just, we parked through the pandemic, the exception of the year that there was no fair. But we didn't really spend it. And ask kind of became dormant. So I was a little surprised by that number.
Yeah.
That's a
yeah,
lot.
nice.
But that's my only explanation. It was fair parking and 1 or 2 holiday craft fairs and very little spending
Mhm.
throughout the pandemic.
Okay, a motion to approve the donation.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Yes. Howard seconded it. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
New England Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation process overview. Dr. Downey.
So Dr. Downing is here to give you an overview of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, the accreditation process.
Yes, so we met, we had a group of staff that we all pulled ourselves together to work on writing our self-study. This is my second time going through this process as administrator, but a first time with the new, I guess you could call it, more improved process. I have to give a lot of credit to Erica Capellar, our curriculum coordinator, and Sue Noyes, who's also been working with our collaborative planning time, which are those carved out pieces of time that we have at the middle high school. They created, I think, what's probably downright a marketable, sellable, canned type of process to gather all of the information that we needed for that self-study. And it was gathering that information, having it all put together it was almost seamless. So I really have to thank them a lot for creating that process and creating such a really good collaborative experience for people to get out such a huge volume of information from every facet of what we offer at the middle high school. So we met this summer, several groups, several hours of writing, and we have completed a complete rough draft of our self-study. We're currently in the editing phases, finishing up some of the community pieces and gathering just some last minute details that we need about facilities and physical situations that would be beyond me. And then our visit has been moved as there was a conflict for the November date. We're now the committee is now going to be coming out on the 5th and the 6th of December. So I'm awaiting to hear from Dr. Mobley and the rest of our committee about the due dates for our self-study. And then we will move on with booking the accommodations and getting ready for the visit in December. So that's where we are. But huge shout out to Erica and Sue for that work.
How frequently is this assessment done?
So the last report that we had was in 2011, I believe.
I was gonna say, for a while
We were
back.
due for our visit last year, in my newness, and if I
All
had
things
asked
pandemic.
if it was okay for us to apply for an extension, and Mary granted that, I got a hold of the NEAS committee, and they were more than willing to give us an extension for an additional year. So this typically would have happened last year, but this visit has now been pushed off to this year. This is our decennial visit. So
Follow up, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Something that hasn't been done in 11 years, and you talked about the process. Congratulations. How has this process, how does it differ from what had been done in the past? In layman's terms for us.
Sure. So the NEAS the NEAS process has a huge group of principles and then sub-principles that need to be explored, reported on, and the information has to be gathered and then made sense of, again, for a group of educators from a variety of backgrounds to understand and give us recommendations and commendations based on those findings. I would say this process, as I've experienced it, has been far less arduous. I can't decide if that's because of the incredible work that Erica did to kind of front load that, but the previous process, there was a lot more legwork, a lot more paperwork, and actually just a lot more writing that had to happen as part of the process. I think this new process is easier and a lot more sustainable for a school group to pull together. So that would be what my feeling is. But again, haven't been into the visit yet, so I'll report that.
I understand that, but thank you, Dr. Downey.
Of course.
Didn't I recall that NEAS revised the process
They did.
in like 2019, 20, something like that. So is it more streamlined? Those things, I went through 4 of them. It's not fun. So, but a streamlined process sounded really appealing.
Well,
Does it feel that way to you?
To me, it does, because the platform's a lot more digitized now than it was prior to my first, and again, I can only build on what I had as my experience, were boxes and boxes and boxes of paper information and student work and examples. And it took a long time, not only for the school staff to gather that and get it in good order, it took a long time for the visiting committees to make sense of that. And I think that what they're looking for is just to have a more authentic and just a more sustainable approach. And so far, I think this feels that way. Absolutely.
There is something that the visiting team does with the board, as I recall, to like.
So as those
details
details become clearer, we will make sure
Yeah.
to keep you abreast. So it's December 5th and 6th that they will be on site. The other thing that I think is important to note is we are going through the process for grades 7 through 12. And that's a first, because we had gone through the accreditation in the past, only 9 through 12. But our middle high school, we have, will be probably one of the fewer schools that has a 7-8 through the accreditation process. It's not as common. So that is certainly, I think, an important distinction, and I think something to be very proud of.
And it obviously goes without saying that we had a lot of our educators that gave up some significant chunks of their summer to sit and write and make sure that this was done well. So they're owed a debt of gratitude as well.
Okay. Nomination of professional teaching staff for the 2022-2023 school year.
So you do have a social studies teacher who we hired. You did give me permission. That is certainly, you may want to do, take that up in non-public, or you may want to formalize the process. That's certainly up to the board. We are very grateful. We have a teacher in every classroom.
Is everybody good? Let's do it now.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
Mark, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Policy Review Committee minutes, August 30th, 2022. Your attachment is number 7, and you guys have been very busy with all these policies. Okay. So category 2, approval for policy 8344. Public participation at school board meetings. That's attachment number 8.
It's going to be helpful for me just to speak, but I just gave the board a revised attachment. I did, my goal had been to connect with the attorney as requested by the policy committee, and I did have some conversation and have made some revisions compared to what you had in your original packet. I think the very first bullet to just note is that defining public comment as comment period open for comments from residents of the school district who are physically present. That was something that the committee talked about, distinguishing really that public comment is for people who are physically present and moving to that. So that would mean sunsetting the online portion, continuing the live streaming, but sunsetting, that portion that, was in place during the pandemic.
if I'm out there watching the meeting, can I send a text message if it's not a question? Can I send a text message that says, may I ask a question?
So I would say maybe Mr. Duncan Porter Zuckerman would like to.
Our
speak to
thought
that.
was that the public comment period would be limited to people present in the meeting. There's been a precedent of someone actually getting in a car and driving to the meeting in the past. And that in lieu of that, we all are able to be contacted through email, and that the superintendent can be contacted, and that there are other ways of expressing concerns to the board, but that public comment is in a public meeting as defined by this policy. So that's where we were coming from. And that it allows the time management of the meeting to be cleaner.
Okay,
Then
yes,
Excuse me, Mary, you had something?
I was just going to go on to the next bullet. My apologies.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I do not know what the legislation says. I have concerns. I have a concern with the term resident. It does not say resident of the school district. It does not say resident voter. Also down to the third bullet, will clearly identify themselves. I'd like to know which town they're from.
yeah, we want to state the town.
So the first bullet does say residents of the school district.
Yes.
I don't think you have to be a registered voter to.
Well, I don't know what the law.
I did speak with Diane Goro from Sol Leslie Kidder, and that was residents of the school district was what she indicated was.
It becomes a little complicated because we have 6-month residents and we have 6-month and a day residents. I mean, it's a,
Yeah.
I don't have
They're
an
still legally
answer to the
resident.
question, really.
So that's certainly, if the board would want me to go back, I can certainly try to get a better definition of resident from.
I would say that I'm comfortable with the language as a resident of the school district, and I have concerns that opening that and restricting it to registered voters would be really problematic.
Yeah.
And I would not support that. I support the language as it's written.
I think the voter piece would be concerning from the attorney's perspective
Yeah.
as potentially discriminatory.
And if they're legally residents, which 6 months and a day they are, we couldn't redefine that in our policy. anyway.
Correct.
So,
We'd be looking for a legal definition of
right,
that.
right.
And what happens, I have a quick question, what happens to those people that are maybe tuitioning kids in and are not residents
So I
of the
did
district?
discuss that with Diane Goro, and that would be something the board could take up as a separate, not as public comment, but if there was somebody who, has their child attends as a non-resident student, you could decide to take that up as an additional agenda item and not make it part of public comment.
Almost like select board,
Sure.
select town meetings do when they allow
Somebody else.
non-residents to address the meeting.
But her advice was keep it separate, that that is not public comment, that they, obviously have something they want to
Yeah, yeah, of
express. So that could be under other business, that the board is willing to then hear.
When you started this conversation, you talked about state law. I'm struggling trying to find what the benefit is. Feeling that the other side of benefit is a public complaint that they don't have the opportunity to speak. They live 25 miles away. It's very hard for them to physically come in, and you're basically not allowing them to speak. We haven't had any real problems with, even if we get a question, I'm not sure what we're going to accomplish.
And I'm going to refer back to policy. I'm trying to bring forward, I want to be, this is the board's policy, so.
So part of it is time management, and then the law stipulates that we have to have this open period of time. So if we have do as we have done in the past during this exception to during the pandemic. If someone asks a question outside of that time period, do we reopen the 30 minutes? And it just means that, or when do we do the 30 minutes? And that by returning to what we have done for the history of the school district, of having a public meeting open to the residents of the town and have public comment in person in that, and that these other avenues for communication are perfectly reasonable and we welcome them, but that in this meeting, to make this meeting move forward in a timely and reasonable fashion, we're going to return to what we've always done, which is if you're here, you can talk, and that there's this specific period of time for 30 minutes for public comment. And that's where we were thinking. If the board doesn't support that, we can readdress that. But I do support that.
I don't know if it's helpful for the next bullet, just to starting to the conversation, and there was different advice given from the New Hampshire School Boards Association. Diane Gora was start the clock at that 30-minute time, like the board has been doing since August, and let it run. And if somebody comes with public comment, that you have the option of proceeding with your agenda. If nobody's here, somebody comes, then you would hear their comment, within that time frame. So her suggestion was not to get into New Hampshire School Board was, well, you could, start the clock, basically pause the clock, and then have a second public comment and start the clock again. But she felt that if you started the clock again, and let's say you only had used 5 minutes here and you had 25 minutes, you really have to wait out that amount of time. So her thought was, for efficiency, having it start and keeping it going while your agenda is moving forward made sense.
Yes.
I agree completely with Duncan. I think having a broader opportunity for anyone's input who has legitimate input that would be helpful to the board, or even unhelpful to the board, is something worth doing. I made my comments simply because I was unclear as to who's eligible to do this.
Well, it's been more than 30 minutes anyway right now, right?
Only Fancy has that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still struggling with the issue of not allowing people who are logged on, I think there were a number of ways in which participation was increased during COVID because of those options. And for the same reason you just said, Howard, any avenue for people to be engaged could be really helpful. I don't know how one organizationally deals with that. Do you let all the people who are present speak, and if the 30 minutes is up, you don't read the comments that come in online, or do you ask periodically, are there any online comments or what? But it seems to me that we want more engagement and participation, and there was from people who really can't get to a school board meeting because they have young children or whatever.
You might consider, maybe that becomes correspondence that you'll, look at the point in the agenda, rather than having it as public comment. It's correspondence that you would take up at the part in the agenda that you have specific for correspondence. That might be a way of separating it out of the public input and the 30-minute thing.
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree completely with Nancy. I think what we're dealing with here is a formal adaptation to meet the requirements of legislation. That's the 30 minutes. People have always called me at home.
Yeah.
There has been this whole informal process. I'm sure Duncan, and this I think moves in the direction of what Nancy was saying. We don't want to this is not the exclusive one and only way. We need as many opportunities to hear from the public as possible, and I'm sure we'll continue to.
I think as a member of the policy committee who entered into this discussion, I would make it very clear, I'm entirely in favor of people getting in touch day or night, sending me emails, leaving messages, the district, whatever. That is something I'm always open to, and I think we are all open to that. To my mind, this policy responds to a specific legislative act that requires us to have an open period of time in our meeting. And we should be able to have rules of how that occurs. And I don't think that this, as it's written, is an impediment to public participation at all. And I think, and I think your compromise of having it as correspondence read into the agenda or at the next meeting or however, I'm entirely open to communication. I just think that public comment has always been for people inside meetings who stand up and say, I'm from this town and this is my concern. And that there are other ways to communicate those concerns formally or informally that we are always open to and supportive of. And, whether that's the parking lot, the grocery store, or an email that is, when asked, do any of the board members have further business? Certainly those are all avenues to explore this. And, if others on the board are quite concerned about this, I'm happy to bring it back to policy, but.
I feel like, me personally, I know for me personally, I've had a lot of people, parents come up to me and say they love the opportunity to be able to address something during the streaming of our meetings. Because it's hard, because people are trying to make dinner and pick up kids at different events and so like what is the logistics that you're worried about? Because obviously if we're streaming it anyway, we have to have somebody here.
And I want policy committee. I want to try to distinguish.
Is it here? I guess my question is it harder to take these questions within that 30-minute time frame? We have to be open for 30 minutes anyway.
No, it's just in the past, I mean, if you want to take public, if that's your only concern, that for the first 30 minutes of the meeting, if Mark gets a public comment,
Mhm.
I have no objection to that, whatever. I mean, do you?
One of the things that we talked about was this, just, off the technical issues. I mean, what happens if we don't have the ability to take comment online,
Oh,
right?
that's-
Because the internet goes out, whatever.
Right.
So we wanted to, be specific and say, we have opportunities to talk to the board through email and phone, because that's on the website, if you have an issue with the agenda ahead of time. At the meeting, we wanted people to be at the meeting to address us specifically, if they wanted to do that, right? And, I get that it's easier for people to stay at home and do that, but it's also, make your presence known to us so we can, really understand what you're saying, other than a text email that we read out. So it's something that we discussed. We can, look at it again, but we felt that we wanted participation on site with open comment.
I think from a legal standpoint, you're following the law by having the clock run. So you certainly have time for it to go back to policy. I don't think that it's an urgent decision you need to make.
I would like to see it go back to policy and maybe like clean it up about the internet. If the internet is not working, that's something that they have to come here in person. Some kind of a disclaimer.
Sure. Okay, but you start adding all this into documents, right? What's it gonna take? It's gonna take forever.
Well, I don't think it's gonna take forever.
But people would understand if the internet was down.
Right,
that they could communicate.
I just think that with 30 minutes of having it open, I don't think that there's a harm. They always identify themselves when they call in or email in. But that's my 2 cents. I mean, that's how
I'm
I
in the
feel.
same camp.
I don't think we should.
More is better.
Should we have a vote about
Sure.
maybe sending it back to policy? Who's in favor of sending it back to policy?
That was a consensus of
It was
the
a
board.
consensus vote.
Yes.
Consensus to return to policy. Thank you.
Okay, first reading of attachments 9 through 6. Oh, yes, go ahead.
There were other bullet points, weren't there, Mary, on this one that you were going to talk about?
Sure. Well, I talked about, or started to mention that the 30 minutes, so the clock would start, and then if there was nobody present, board can continue, may continue with agenda items. And then if public were to be, become present, then you would hear them. And then I think just there was, Mr. Cunningham made the comment about and state the town of residence for the fourth bullet down. And then just there was simplification of just all speakers are encouraged to be courteous and respectful in their remarks.
I had a question about that. It looks like the word encouraged was added right there. I would much rather personally have it say all speakers are to be courteous and respectful.
The law says that they can use
the
obscenities.
stronger
They
we
can-
can be there,
I mean,
the better.
I don't want to encourage, I want.
No, I don't
just
want to
do it.
encourage. I want people to do it. And then, whatever we do to reinforce that or to
And some of
monitor
that
it.
is,
There were times when people were not particularly courteous as fall and
and our requirement that they be courteous has no.
well, but
meaning or
this is
standing.
language in our policy of,
It's
this
fine.
implies that we're just encouraging them. I don't know. If you guys want to keep it that way, that's fine. It just struck me that it's,
I would agree with you, Nancy. Be courteous and respectful
Yeah.
in their remarks.
Right.
Short, succinct, to the point.
Okay, well, it is going back to policy, so. All right, moving on to attachments 9 through 16. Do you want me to read the policies, and would you like to go through?
I'm happy to do that if that's helpful.
Yes, that is.
Do you want to make a motion? Let's see. So the policies, the board is being asked to consider a motion for first reading of the following policies: contest for students, background investigation and criminal records check, admission requirements for students entering or transferring into the Interlake School District, emergency care and first aid, suicide intervention, objections to course material, health education and exemption from instruction, special education, independent educational evaluation.
Motion to approve the first reading of the following policies just laid out by Superintendent Moriarty.
In a second. Is there any discussions, questions with any of these policies? All those in favor?
Aye.
And if I could, just for a moment, I've asked Mr. Parsons, I just want people to know where our suicide prevention plan is. So policy states the following, that the school district is required to have a suicide prevention plan. The plan is to be reviewed and approved by the school board annually, which you do. The superintendent will ensure the district suicide prevention plan meets RSA 193-J, which it does. And I just want people to know where to find that plan. It is Suicide Prevention Month, I believe. I know that this week in particular, there has been some public announcements around suicide prevention. But I want people to see that if we go under family resources, and if you scroll down, the suicide prevention plan is there. And, this certainly, if a student presents with a concern, it has our process for that. So I think it's just a good educational piece for people to be aware. And it has tips for people and so forth. My objective isn't to go through the whole plan, but I did want the board and use it as an opportunity for the community to know that it's under family resources.
Yes.
Memory this time, good memory, serves to tell me that there is a requirement that all policies are to be reviewed and
All policies annually?
which of course we couldn't do.
No. It's 3 years.
Is
which
it
I
every
think, I think it
3
was,
years?
it's 3 years, which is difficult to do.
Do we know how many that are required to be reviewed annually?
We have plans that are required to be reviewed annually, not policies. So like the suicide prevention plan is annually, the data privacy plan is annually. Actually, the suicide prevention plan by law is every other year. I ask that we do it annually because it gets confusing for us to have plans on different, so it's much easier if we just keep things on an annual basis. Plus, I think it allows us to keep the most up to date. The
And to keep it in the
emergency,
public mind.
yes, and the emergency plan that you just approved for athletics, those are things that are required by law to be done annually, but not the policies themselves.
Thank you.
Okay. The next items are rescinding attachment 17 and 18, policy 1110, communications and policy 3725, emergency care and first aid, as recommended.
So the reason for the rescinding is they get incorporated into other policies, so we're trying to streamline.
Okay.
Motion to approve rescinding policies 1110 and 3725.
Is there a second? Howard. All those in favor?
All right.
Okay. Policies reviewed, no action required, attachments 19 through 25. This is just stating that these have been.
That they were reviewed, just so the board, again, that's part of that, hopefully the 3-year cycle, just
Okay.
making the board aware that they were reviewed.
And no motion necessary.
No motion. Okay. So, we're moving down to additional business, members of the board, members of the administration.
Mary, we have to give an announcement.
Oh, yes, there's that big announcement.
Big announcement.
So I'm just gonna read to everybody an email that was, sent from the, Division 3, president, of athletics.
And this is a positive announcement.
Yes.
Always frame it that way.
Oh, where's the surprise in that?
So, Scott Fitzgerald, who is the Division 3, president for NHIAA, sent this email. As president of Division 3, I would like to extend a huge and well-deserved congratulations to Sarah Dumais for being recognized as the 2021-22 Division 3 Athletic Director of the Year.
Yay.
This is a well-deserved honor for Sarah, as she is such a kind, student-centered, and dedicated person who is a tremendous colleague to us all. There's so much behind-the-scenes work that ADs have to do, and to say that Sarah goes above and beyond is a vast understatement, in my humble opinion, as I've witnessed personally the evening and weekend correspondences that have taken place while she works on students' behalf. I believe this award is extra special as it's voted on by her peers who know the position and the nuances of the job. And she's separated herself by her work ethic, her high character, and her empathetic approach to all she encounters. And in true fashion, she's busy being an athletic administrator.
Full time, full time.
But this was a wonderful thing to witness at the NHA meeting yesterday.
Excellent. Please
Congratulations.
pass on our congrats.
She knows.
She does. And wishes everybody else did not know. So I would appreciate you peppering her. brains.
Done.
Okay, on to the announcements. Tuesday, September 27th, Interlake School Board at the Humiston Building. New staff reception will be at 5:30 and a special school board meeting at 6 p.m. Tuesday, October 11th, Interlake School Board meeting at the Humiston Building. Regular school board meeting will start at 6 p.m. Tuesday, October 25th, Interlake School Board at the Humiston Building. Special school board meeting at 6 p.m.
You still have public comment open. I don't know if you want to have Mr. Parsons double check if there's any, and then officially close it. is what I
Okay,
would
that's
say.
fine. Any,
Just refreshing the page.
okay,
Madam Chair, I will probably not make the 27th. I'm flying back from the West Coast.
oh, okay. That's good for you.
Madam Chair, I will also be out.
That same one? Okay. That's good.
And you are officially closing public comment at, is it
6:49. Okay,
Takes us to none.
well, we need to Go into non-public.
More than what?
Just one brief thing.
We're going into non-public for RSA 91A3, B, and C. The hiring of any person as a public employee in matters which is, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board unless such persons request an open meeting. Motion
Motion
to
to
move
approve into
into
non-public.
Mark, is there a second?
I'll second.
We need to poll. And we usually.
Usually it's
Yeah.
Mr. Hanson.
Yeah, but he's not here, so somebody needs to just poll. Fred, will you do it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Howard?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, yes.
Lisa?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well.
okay, great. Thank you.